It's a pleasure to welcome you to today's session of TAP Talks. TAP India is the art platform, which is a collective platform that brings together leading galleries from across the country and facilitates a unified art market through collaborations and interesting conversations. I'd like to thank Sharan Apparao and Anupa Mehta for conceptualizing TAP Talks. Please feel free to send in your questions to the Zoom chat box below, and we'll address those at the end of the conversation. Today's talk is focused on private art museums in India, specifically the Museum of Art and Photography, also known as MAP, through which we explore its vision, workings, and its existence as a digital museum prior to its opening. As discussed in our last talk on private art museums, museums as collections of curios stem from the 16th century Kunstkammer, Cabinet of Curiosities. Wherever human beings exist, art and culture exist. The desire to make and experience art goes back to the cave paintings, arising from a kind of primal feeling for making and viewing. A museum as a repository for art is an entity that collects and preserves art. But more importantly, it's a place for engagement with art and self-reflection, and also an agent for social progress. The number of private art museums across the globe has risen dramatically over the past 2 decades, with more private than public museum spaces existing today. For example, of the 300 private contemporary art museums worldwide, over 70% were founded in the last 15 years. The rise of private art museums globally has led to dramatic changes in the cultural language of art and a phenomenal increase in art audience awareness. This raises questions about the changing roles of private art museums in society. There is a shift away from Western cultural narratives and towards decolonized local art practices. The Art Museum of the 21st century aims to be welcoming, pluralistic, inclusive of the local community, and reflects societal diversity. In India, the private art museum is a very recent phenomenon. As South India's first major private art museum, the Museum of Art and Photography in Bangalore aims to take art and culture to the heart of the community, making it accessible to diverse audiences, and to create a museum-going culture for people from all walks of life, encouraging the experience of art and heritage in new ways. Founded by Abhishek Poddar in the year 2016, MAP has a large and manifold collection spanning several genres of art, photography, textiles, antiquities, and design, predominantly from South Asia. At the heart of MAP's identity is the idea of tracing and mapping relationships between artistic disciplines, as opposed to the older schools of categorization, and striving instead towards a newer idea of narrative building. Today, MAP is custodian of a growing collection over 18,000 artworks. I hope I'm right about the number. Before diving into the conversation, I'd like to offer a brief introduction of our passionate, committed, and esteemed guests here tonight. We're delighted to have Abhishek Poddar with us. Abhishek is the founder and force behind the upcoming Museum of Art and Photography MAP in Bangalore, where he serves as a trustee, and to which he donated the initial leadership gift and a substantial portion of his family's art collection. As a prominent collector since the past 3 decades, Abhishek has been collecting art since high school and has created a significant collection of South Asian art, textiles, craft, and antiquities, including modern and contemporary art and photography. Besides serving on various boards and committees in India, Abhishek also serves on the advisory committees of the Indo-Europe Foundation for New Dialogues, headquartered in Rome, and on the Lincoln Center Global Advisory Council. I've known Abhishek personally as a friend. Though our families have known each other for 3 generations, it was his interest and passion for the arts that kept us in touch. I admire his passion and perseverance to accomplish his goals. be it acquiring works of art, creating Tasveer, a pioneer niche gallery for photography, and now a much needed art museum in Bangalore with a vision to revive the city's cultural landscape and to pioneer an inclusive, welcoming, and community focused museum going culture. But
Thank
above
you.
all,
No, I was just thanking you. Sorry to interrupt.
sorry?
I said I was just thanking you. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, no, that's fine. That's fine. But above all, it is Abhishek's magnanimity that endures the most. So many have sought his advice on art, including myself on occasion. Therefore, I'm delighted to have this conversation with Abhishek today. Just a fun fact, research indicates that the average age of a private museum founder globally is 65, which makes Abhishek one of the youngest museum founders.
Thank you for this very warm introduction. And I think I should have done this much sooner. I think 65, in fact, the big debate with many collectors was, why do you wait until your old age to start a museum? Because you have so much less left in your own life to enjoy. So why didn't you do it earlier? And I'm glad that they taught me that, you should practice what you preach. And I decided before I'm going to turn 50, I'm going to start working on it.
So you're still one of the youngest. Okay, so we are also very happy to have Kamini Sawhney with us. As MAP's first director, Kamini has brought together a young, inspired team focused on creating a new museum experience for audiences in India. In leading this founding team, she's helped shape a vision for MAP that seeks to inspire people to interact with art in ways that encourage humanity, empathy, and a deeper understanding of the world in which we live. She has advocated MAP's representation at various fora, including India Art Fair, workshops at the CSMBS in Mumbai, the Bangalore Literary Festival, and the Bangalore International Center. In an earlier role, Kamini was the head of the Jahangir Nicholson Art Foundation and the CSMVS Mumbai. She's forged successful collaborations between various institutions, both international and domestic. Sawhney was selected as one of the first candidates for the Brooks Fellowship at Tate Modern in 2014 in collaboration with the Delphina Foundation. In a previous avatar as journalist and television anchor, Kamini was a bureau chief of NDTV Mumbai. So I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our passionate and distinguished guests here with us tonight, Abhishek Poddar and Kamini Sawhney. Museum founders give so much of their life, time, and energy to museums that it feels natural that their motivations and experiences are shared. Abhishek is a striking example of the passion and love for art leading to the creation of MAP. MAP is set to open soon as South India's first major private art museum. Abhishek, tell us about your motivations and inspirations that went into creating MAP and your vision to share your collection with the public.
Thank you, Mamta, for that. I think I've had quite a blessed growing up when it comes to the arts, especially. I've had the good fortune of learning from some of the real gurus in all these departments that you mentioned. And they just took me under their wing. I guess I was pretty much like a sponge. And whether it was Hussain or Manjeet, as far as modern and contemporary art was concerned, or Jyotindra Jain, when it was popular culture, or Swaminathan, when it was folk and tribal art, or Mapu, when it was textiles, I literally had the best, B.N. Goswami and Jagdish Mittal for miniature paintings, Dayanita for photography. And before one knew it, one also started acquiring some of these works. And these really weren't at very high prices. I mean, something that a school-going kid could afford. So you can imagine it wouldn't have been very expensive. Over a period of time, different historians and curators would come asking to see certain things in the collection. And they would even often ask for it to be borrowed for a museum show that was in some part of Europe or the US. And it kind of bothered me that why is anybody in India not interested in this? And it's only the West that is looking at these things. then a point came when they started saying, what are you going to do with this collection going forward? And I said, one day it should go to a museum. And different museums started wooing us in terms of, would you consider giving it to us? And I would always tell them that you open a branch in India and you can have it, but it's not leaving the country, because I think we in India really need to see this much more than people outside the country. And nobody was prepared to open a branch over here. And we really felt that, there's so much that needs to be done in the arts, because there was the gallery space which was thriving, but really not the museum space, and a place for education and for community building through this. So I think that really was the impetus why we needed to do it. And I, frankly speaking, didn't know what all it would entail, because quite clearly, had I known how arduous the journey would have been, though it's extremely rewarding as well, I'm not sure I would have made that decision had I been in the total know of things.
Thank you, Abhishek. I'm sure you'll serve as inspiration to many, many. Kamini, how would you define the vision of MAP?
Okay, first let me say thank you to the organizers of TAP Talks and Mamta to you for inviting us to talk about our museum, which we really love doing. So our vision for MAP is really an institution that adds value to the community, the country, and the world at large, I think, through the arts. We have some of the richest traditions of art and culture, but so little appreciation for it in India. And we hope to be that catalyst for change and help people reconnect with the arts. Because in India, if you think about it, art has really been a way of life for centuries. The artisan was really at the heart of the village economy, creating everyday objects that were both beautiful and useful, and it allowed for a very sustainable way of life. And sadly, that structure is disintegrating. And even in urban spaces, we want to remind people that art is not something that's found on the walls of museums or galleries. Art is really about the way we live. It's in the rangoli that we decorate our thresholds with. It's in the way we decorate our puja rooms or the altars in a church or our mosques. It's in the warp and the weft of a sari. So what we want to do is to change the museum experience in India so that it becomes a first choice for anyone when they go out. A space where you learn something and you have fun doing it. So we see MAP really as a cultural hub. It's like an innovative space for ideas, for conversations, for interaction. It's a place that people love being in. And we hope to be that catalyst for people to reconnect with the arts and come out and support the arts.
Thanks, Kamini. It's interesting that through your digital programs, it's already a welcoming space. So that's great. And Abhishek, it would be interesting for our viewers to know a bit about your journey into art, which you've already mentioned. I know it began when you were just about 15, 16 years of age, and which has led to a lifelong passion and interest in the arts. And there was Tasveer, and now there's this tremendous project of setting up MAP. But through this journey, there must have been a shift in your taste and preferences for art, over all these 4 decades of collecting art. How has your own criteria as a collector changed since MAP? Can you point out a few works that you almost didn't acquire or that you miss having not acquired? Sorry, Shruti, while Abhishek is responding, could you start the images, please, that are part of his collection?
So I think the 3-4 images that I've shortlisted here it's not just the artworks, it's the relationship that one even had with the artist. So this is Mother Earth by Meera Mukherjee. And Meera was one of the first sculptors that I had encountered. And we immediately struck up a close relationship and a rapport. And I'm talking about 1987 or something like that. And so much so that we acquired a large collection of her work over the years. And when it came for time for us to be married, she actually embroidered an entire kantha as a dupatta for Radhika and had a lot of her sculptures embroidered as designs of the sculptures into that. She was the first artist who did my portrait. And she was just such an amazingly talented person, not just as a artist, as a sculptor, even as a singer. So this is one which I'm very fond of. And the interesting part about this is the back. Thank you for showing us that. So that's Mother Earth, and this is the people tree, which is her hair, and feeding the entire humanity, the entire planet, where it says, you know, there's really enough for everybody here. Enough for everybody's need, not enough for everybody's greed.
Yeah.
Can we move to the next image?
Can you keep moving? Yeah.
These are just different.
Yeah. Next.
Manjeet Baba, who has really been a very dear friend and my guru. This was possibly the very first work of Manjeet that I acquired. And again, it was around the same time, in fact, even before meeting Meera, that I met Manjeet. And it was thanks to the illustrated weekly that used to be around in those days that I even got to learn about him and his work. And he used to call me his younger brother. He was one who took me, made me meet many other artists, and really sharpened my eye to tell me what is good and what is bad about art, or what is there to look for. And he would test me very often. We've traveled together, God knows how many trips. He's come and danced at my wedding. He's been there whenever I've needed him. He's really, really been a guide, a mentor, a very special friend.
Next one, Shruti.
This is Krishna Yashoda by Jamini Roy. Not an artist who I've known personally, because I think he passed away before I started collecting art. It was in the early 70s. But somebody whose work I have grown up with, and every time I look at his work, I enjoy it more and more. Despite the simplicity, and considering where he started from and what he ended up doing, and how he took the Kalighat part and made it a style that's totally his own, and possibly used in Indian design language more than any other artist has been.
Yeah, Shruti, next one. Wonderful one.
And that's Jayashree Chakravarti, Hovering Angels. I remember when I first went to Jayashree's home, and she had just returned that very day or the day before that from a long 6-month trip overseas. And this painting was there, and she was in no mood to sell this work. And she quoted me something which she thought would drive me away. And I said, no, I'll take it. And I think that was what totally stunned her and was the beginning of our friendship. And it's a work I'm still extremely fond of.
Beautiful.
Talking about how tastes have changed, yes. I can't say what really led to each one, but I think most of the credit I would give is to the guru who led me to opening my eye towards that discipline. I think there have been many works that I've missed, but there are very few works that I continue to miss, because I'm glad that there's great art everywhere. You can enjoy it. Everything doesn't have to be in your custody or within your four walls. I think good art should be there for everyone to enjoy, and in every place that you go to. What has kind of changed in my collecting patterns currently is, earlier I was collecting to build a collection. Today one is collecting to fill up gaps because it's a museum. And you know, when the spirit behind MAP is collaboration, we really don't have to own everything. We can just borrow it whenever we need it for a show. And fortunately, everybody's generous enough to allow us to do that. So there isn't anything I would miss. Yes, there would be stuff that momentarily you feel that it should be in MAP's collection, but as long as it's available to us to borrow, it doesn't have to be with us.
That's great. So that's a very expansive view of enjoying art. Kamini, I'd like to ask you about the programming and exhibitions. So programming and exhibitions play a significant role in a private museum's influence in connecting and engaging with, and also bringing art closer to a wider audience. Could you share your thoughts on the artistic direction, the programming, exhibitions that make the private contemporary art museum a societal space for creative expression?
Okay. So as a new museum, we're so eager to share our collection with our audiences. So the collection really becomes the edifice on which we structure all our exhibitions, our programming, our events. So just to give you an idea, the collection is loosely divided into 6 categories. So there's pre-modern, there's modern and contemporary, there's textile craft and design, living traditions, which includes folk and tribal art, photography, popular culture. We are one of the few, if not the only museum that has popular culture as part of the collection. So the idea here really is to break down these hierarchies between what is perceived as high and low art, and which has always been seen as the canon of Indian art history, which was established earlier because of colonization, and we don't seem to have moved away from that. So somebody really needs to take that step. And the idea also is to have objects and things reflect so that every community, people from different backgrounds, come into the museum and find that there is some part of their life reflected in this space, and then they're able to connect. So these are the ideas that influence our approach to the artworks and the interesting ways in which they can be presented. For example, one of the exhibitions we are looking at is how traditions in miniature painting have influenced popular culture. So that's going to be one of the exhibitions in the physical space. Then in our digital exhibition earlier this year, we worked with the theme of Kantha textiles from Bengal. So that looked at communities of women who recycled worn out cloth to create these beautifully embroidered textiles. And besides foregrounding this work, the exhibition also explored how modern and contemporary artists drew on this ancient craft of embroidery. For example, if you look at Arpita Singh, very often her paintings have, these kantha stitch-like marks crisscrossing the surface. So those were interesting connections that we wanted to make. Our current exhibition on our digital platform is Stories on a Banana Leaf, which draws on such diverse objects as a coconut scraper to a Mughal miniature. So all these objects unlock a range of stories about food. And the reason we picked food at this time was during the pandemic, food somehow became a great source of comfort to people. It brought back memories, it brought back associations. Food is often the glue that holds the community together. So, and we had such a great response to that. Similarly, our programming also covers such a diverse range so that we are able to address different kind of target groups or interest groups that we have. So we've had celebrated artists like Maria Abramovich, the performance artist, but we also focus on music created, say, by local communities like the grind mill songs. These are Marathi folk songs which are sung by women while they're grinding grain or going about their other household tasks. And finally, just let me end with education, which is so fundamental to what we do at MAP. And we've rolled out programming way before the physical museum opened, because we wanted to connect with the community and tell them, this is a new museum coming up in your city, and let's engage. So we opened an education space where we had this whole range of workshops, and we've catered to over 5,000 children so far. And we use the arts to stimulate creative thinking and critical inquiry. This is not just a drawing painting class. This is really to use the arts to help people to think. So we've had children from different backgrounds, different levels of learning, different ages, and curated these small exhibitions which they respond to. And we're also trying to see the impact of what we do. We collaborated with GenPact to evolve a monitoring and evaluation tool, because we don't want to be just creating these things without understanding whether they have any impact on the children, how the children responding. So that's what we've been working on for the last year.
That's great. It's not just one thing. It's multi-pronged, and you're bringing all these disciplines together, which is really wonderful. I think I saw images of the workshop which you had for children, which was also based on animals, and you use examples of folk art, Jangar's works maybe?
Yeah, you should ask Abhishek to tell you. I was not there during that lovely workshop on children, but Abhishek was. Abhishek, you want to talk about it?
Yes. So this was quite we were wondering, how do we engage children with art? And this was our very first exhibition and workshop that we thought of doing. So we called it Tales and Tales. So ILS and LES, so animals and stories. So we must have had about 35, 40 artworks. the idea was that your classroom becomes the exhibition hall. And like Kamini said, we decided to do our education, technology, and our conservation laboratories even before we started construction on the physical side, so that we build capacity. So, because once the museum opens, the exhibition becomes the classroom. So we had, horses by Hussein, a Manjeet Bawa goat, we had photographs, we had sculptures, we had oleographs, we had textiles, everything to do with animals. And it was typically for kids from the ages of about 6 to 13, 14. And each batch was about 25 or 30 kids from one school or one class in one school. They would come. So typically these kids would run around and make fun of the art, because how can a horse look like this? And this is no way to paint a goat. And doesn't he know what a goat looks like? Kids are sometimes even more opinionated than we are. And unless it's photorealistic, they don't get it that this is, they feel that this is not the right way to draw it. So once they all settled down, we said, how do we engage the kids? So we did two exercises. The first was a rudimentary map of Bangalore, and where these kids would normally go and who would they meet. For example, a balloon seller in a park, or the bus conductor, their librarian at school, their grandmother at home, a friend, a policeman on the road, a taxi driver, people like that. And then each one was given this map, asked to go back to the exhibition and match each person in there with an animal and tell us why they had chosen that animal. Now, Mamta, there are no right or wrong answers here, but it was quite interesting to see how invariably the librarian was the owl. Now, you ask yourself, is this the conditioning that education does? Or, quite frankly, this is what the elders would have taught them. The grandmother was invariably the cow, because she would give milk every time they came back from school. She would be nurturing and she would be loving. But one of the kids had a fox as the grandmother. And when we inquired why she had chosen her grandmother to be the fox, we clearly understood she wasn't very fond of her grandmother. So, interpersonal relationships also come out that way. And the kids had this great thing going around, because they were all friends. They were from the same school. They knew each other, as to why each one had chosen which one and what were their reasons. So you even get to know each other a lot better. The other exercise we did in the same exhibition was, we said, why don't you create your own animal now? And these kids were saying, but how can you conceive of a new animal? How do you create an animal? We said, in India, you can create your own God. Why can't you create an animal? So we said, okay, we'll help you. We took printouts of about 10, 12 of these artworks, and we cut each animal into 3, the head separate, the body separate, and the tail separate. We said, if you can't conceive of one, why don't you mix and match and make one? So they would choose the head of an elephant, the body of a deer, the tail of a peacock, or something like that. And then they were told, give a name to your animal and tell us where you would find it and make a story about it. And they just had such a blast that show, I think, we kept on for almost 9 months, because every school wanted all their kids to come, and it just went around. And then, we said, this is not the only thing we are teaching. There are many things like that. So that was just the example I think Kamini wanted me to give you.
Well, that's great. I think the children must have had a whale of a time morphing figures and drawing relationships between people they know and animals. Should be introduced in other schools as well. Great fun, I'm sure. Another question, Abhishek, for you is about your MAP's acquisition policy, your current and your future plans. You're a museum now that's becoming a home to many gifts, and that's something that's a new model in India. How do you manage to convince collectors to part with their collections? And which are the notable ones that have already been gifted? Also, do you have a criteria for deciding acquisitions for the museums?
There are many questions here. Firstly, what's our acquisition policy? We have an acquisition policy, but we don't have an acquisition budget as yet. So we are hoping that one day, once our endowment is in place, we would also be able to acquire artworks that we are looking for. But the acquisition policy has been put in place to make sure that there is a particular threshold and a standard of the stuff that we would like to get. And when it comes to convincing collectors to part with their collection, I don't think that is something we really had to do at all, Mamta. Fortunately, we've been approached by collectors if this could be a home to their collection. And I think if we need to be asking someone, would you give this to us? Then I don't think that need should arise, because it'll be wrong to try and convince somebody to do something unless they are themselves motivated enough to be part of MAP. And also, I think if somebody was coming and asking me, hey, can I have this for my museum? Maybe if they don't know about us, yes. But if they know about us, we want them to feel that this is really a place that they would want to see their artwork, not because it would just look good in a museum, but because that could be looked at and shared by generations to come and researched on that. Yes, you're right. This is something we hadn't even thought that we would be fortunate enough to get. When the family gifted about 7,000 artworks, we thought that this would be the seed collection, and then we would be borrowing, and as and when we would be acquiring stuff for the museum. But very soon this got overshadowed by many gifts that came in. And some notable ones are the Jerry Rao collection, which is a collection spanning both modern and contemporary art, as well as right from bronzes and folk and tribal art. The Barbara Kipper collection. So some of the collections we've got are not just from India, but even from outside. And this is a large jewelry collection. And this fits into our textile craft and design section of MAP. We are very fortunate to get part of her collection because she has also shared some pieces of her collection with the Met and the Art Institute of Chicago. And it was just a meeting over a talk I was giving in Chicago, where she was in the audience and she asked to see me later. And I'd never met her before. And the next day she invited me over and she said, you know, I love your story and I want to help. And when I looked at her walls, like we would normally have pictures, she had jewels on her wall. I mean, there was jewelry everywhere because she never bought the jewelry to wear. She bought it to enjoy it as works of art. And she said, well, I've given away part of my collection, but I have a large part still with me, and would you like it? So like that, and another very interesting and a very important collection came to us. Unfortunately, it is, they have requested anonymity, so I'm not at liberty to disclose, but it's called the Travelers Collection. Again, somebody who's been collecting miniature paintings and drawings from India. And when they heard the story about what we were doing at MAP, they asked to see me, and they came with this entire collection that was collected over, God knows, 25, 30 years. And they said, it's from India, it needs to go back to India. And they sent it across to India. So, in fact, the latest gift we got was just yesterday. So we get gifts all the time. So the acquisition policy is that the acquisition committee has to approve that this is something that is of use to the museum. There have been many gifts that we haven't accepted. I'll give you two examples. There was somebody who called me whose uncle had left them a whole collection of cameras and stuff. And he said, you have a museum which has photography in the name. I'm sure this would be useful to you. And these are very valuable cameras. I said, please don't give it to us because it really would just remain in storage. So we found another museum, which was a museum about photography and cameras, and everybody is happy. And the guy who runs that museum said, Abhishek, are you nuts? Do you know how much this is worth? And I said, but the worth comes out only when it is being used by people, not when it's just lying in storage. So I'm glad that it made all three of us happy.
You know, just to add, Mamta, to this, that, you know, usually a museum collection is a very structured kind of thing. A museum decides what its collections are going to be about, and then it decides that these are the things we should have if we represent, say, natural history or whatever. But when you begin with a collector's collection, then it has all these unexpected surprises. It's wandering off in all sorts of directions wherever the collector's interest takes it. So while it can be chaotic, it can be a lot of fun, and it can be, and I said, I don't think any other museum has this diversity in its collections. There are so many things. Very few museums have either photography or popular culture, those kind of things, textile craft and design. I mean, there are just so many things that come together here. So it just makes it so much more fun to work with.
I've been fortunate to see some of Abhishek's works under the discipline of popular culture and serendipity.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them were Abhishek's. You pointed that out, and they were wonderful, the Kantha work, etc. And can't wait for the museum to open. We come to Bangalore and we get to see the rest of it.
Trust me, we also can't wait for the museum to open.
Kamini, you've already begun engaging with art audiences since MAP's digital launch since December 2020. Now, once you open physically, how do you plan to engage with diverse audiences and create interactive and meaningful visitor experiences, including technology-enabled ones? Maybe you could describe the usage of MAP labs to create a museum-going culture that has encouraged people to, experience art in new ways. And also, I'm sure people will be very interested in seeing the digital persona that you all have created of MF Hussain.
Okay, then let me focus on technology here in this answer, because technology really plays a large part in the whole MAP experience, because we are looking to draw young people into the space. So if we want to talk to young people, then we have to speak the language of the digital native. So we're creating a whole lot of experiences just now using holographic technology. So we have the Holo table where you can pull up images completely in 3D. We have the Holo wall where you actually see the complete, like you saw Mother Earth, where Abhishek was one of his favorites. So you actually tend to see the back, the front. If there's something interesting inside the object, you can actually float in. Then we're trying to recreate, if you have a Mughal miniature, then we're trying to, it's interesting for children to be able to walk through that miniature, for example. So using 3D technology, there's a lot of interesting things that we're doing. But we also felt that we are living in the tech capital of the country, Bangalore. So why don't we reach out to all these companies that are here, and why don't we collaborate and tap into the knowledge that they have? And that's how MAP Labs was born, because it really looked at the intersection of art and science. And it's then that Abhishek really reached out to, the first company that we reached out to was Accenture. And so we said, why don't we develop this 3D persona of MF Hussain? He was one of the greatest artists that we had, but so many youngsters have no idea about him. So, what they did actually, what Accenture developed was using artificial intelligence. They created this digital twin of MF Hussain. So you can actually enter into this conversation with him, have a chat with him, ask him questions, and he answers that. This was really devised for the physical space, because we thought people would walk in and start have this chat with him, and he answers and whatnot. Well, since the opening is still some time away, we took this online. It's not as exciting because it loses the whole 3D effect, but it's still very nice to watch, and it's great to interact with. So I could request the team to just play the...
What is your name?
You can call me Hussain Saab, but my full name is Maqbool Fida Hussain.
How old are you?
Want to take a guess? As of today, I am over 100 years old.
Are you real?
As close to real, enough to impress you. Please ask me, what do you need to know about me?
Yeah, that's as
There's
close
a whole range of questions. We just put up a few.
So if I can add to what Kamini said, we did know if we were doing a digital persona, Hussain would possibly be a controversial choice, but he was by far the most starring figure in Indian art. And it was also personally a slightly more selfish reason, because he was the guy who really got me interested in art. I was about 14 or 15 when I first encountered him. He used to come and stay with me in Calcutta. We painted on the same canvas, and it was, in a sense, just a homage to him that we wanted him to do that. It is, you can go onto the MAP website, go enter the Hussain experience, and ask him anything you like from a set of questions which are just pointers. Of course, this is all built on what he has actually spoken in his life. So none of this, though it's a deep fake, none of it is make-believe except for the smart answers. Because if you asked him something that he would not know the answer for, he will give you a smart answer. But otherwise, everything else is what he has actually spoken.
Yeah, well, it's quite real. And today, if he was alive, he would be actually close to 100, I think.
I think he would be more than 100.
More than 100, yeah. Right. And as a gallerist, I find that galleries often serve as a barometer for public taste in art. But however, the diverse collection and the curatorial capacity of museums play a greater role in educating and influencing the public at large. What are your views, Abhishek, on MAP's influence on the art market and collecting patterns for art? Even if you're talking about once it physically opens, how do you think it might set trends in collecting art, especially photography and tribal art?
So I think, Mamta, museums world over have played a very different role from what galleries have played. Galleries are about finding talent, about satisfying the market. But I think a certain weight gets added on the moment it becomes a museum show. You know, there's a certain amount of research that goes into it. There's a certain heft that gets added on. It's not about making markets here, but I think it's more about educating people. And very often, a gallery views what needs to be shown in terms of what would be commercially successful. But that's not the job of a museum. So whether it is something which is going to be a fad to buy or not, the main job is to educate the people and draw these linkages between different forms of art. So, and it's got, I mean, as Kamini mentioned, we've tried to blur the boundary between high art and low art. So there may be enough stuff like popular culture is inexpensive art. And in fact, many people don't even consider it art. 10 years ago, the debate in India was even if whether photography was art or not. So I think it's got not to do with value, but it's got to do with importance. And I think that's the role that we would hope to play. It might so happen that if an artist has a show at a museum, the prices of that harden to some extent, or the interest in that artist gets further ignited. But we are conscious of not doing commercial shows and doing stuff that is really there to educate people. And we don't even want to be in a talking down kind of a mode, because we are learning as we are going along. But it's looking at how do we get people excited and how do we get that whole thing of curiosity that comes into people.
That's great, because for example, even with Tasveer, I know a lot of friends who collected photography. And when MAP opens physically, there will be so much of popular culture, art, and photography to see, tribal art as well. It will have an impact on different objects of collection. Kamini, you've collaborated with museums from across the world to digitally link collections globally with the interesting series, Museums Without Borders. Could you elaborate on this juxtaposition of artworks from MAP with art objects from partner museums, and also other collaborations with museums and institutions?
Okay. So Museums Without Borders really was born out of the pandemic. It was an idea born out of the pandemic. It was a time when people and objects could not travel. And so we said, why don't we make them travel virtually? So So this project really juxtaposes an object from the map collection with an object from the partner museum. And this could be juxtaposed on the basis of differences or similarities in geographies, in mediums, in subject. And this would be articulate. And when you actually bring two objects in dialogue, you get some really interesting conversations. And these would be articulated by the curators from the two sides. And it was a wonderful way of collaborating with different museums. And we reached out to museums across the world. And we had so many people and such encouraging responses. And if I could tell you a little about the first one that we did, which was with the British Museum. I think you have a still of that here. This was, we juxtaposed this modern and contemporary work by the progressive artist Taib Mehta from the map collection with this work by Nayan Sukh, a miniature painting from a great miniaturist from the 18th century. So here were two works that were from different times, different mediums, different genres, but what did they have in common? It was music. And so there you have this single solitary drummer by Taib, which beating in a frenzy of despair on his drum, and contrasted with this group of celebratory trumpeters, probably celebrating a wedding or some kind of festival. So it was such an interesting dialogue that started. And once we did that and we took it out to other museums, everyone came on board. We've done one on Tipu's Tiger with the V&A. We've done with RISD. We've just done a whole range of ones. And it's really been interesting and enjoyable, the whole Museums Without Borders initiative. And so we're looking at different kinds of collaborations that we have. We're looking at a collaboration with Microsoft that we've done, where we're looking at linking, we're using artificial intelligence again here, to link into collections across other museums. So we are using motifs or designs in textiles to see what is the pattern and how can we relate various kinds of artworks. So those are some of the collaborations that we are doing with other organizations or institutions.
That's very interesting. I mean, the linkages lead to so many new connections, and so many things which come out. Even this particular example that you showed,
and it's like Abhishek mentioned earlier. We don't have to have everything because most museums collect and collect, and there's so much in storage which is never going to see the light of day. It's so much nicer to just share. So, that when we collaborate and we share, it's such a much richer experience for the audience.
And the painting of Nayan Sukh stands out when you show it like this, as opposed to a viewer going into the British Museum and looking for it. So it's really great. And coming to learning and education in art and culture. So education in art and culture is also one of your key focus areas. Abhishek, how do you plan to engage with younger and broader communities, which you mentioned earlier, and integrate educational programs into the museum programming? Could you tell us something about the MAP Academy in a world that's gone digital in the last 2 years? And MAP Academy has a much wider reach online. What role do you think the Academy will play in MAP's future?
So education at MAP is really broken up into two parts. One is for kids and one is for adults. And MAP Academy is the one which is looking at the young adults and above, whereas the education and what Kamini talked about, or the Tales and Tales show that we spoke about, was the kids part. So MAP Academy has got really three main missions to start with. And the first is to put together a comprehensive encyclopedia for Indian art. It's quite shocking, but we are at 2021 and there doesn't exist a really comprehensive encyclopedia of Indian art. Having one of the oldest cultures in the planet and having 10,000 years of history and culture behind us, we don't have something comprehensive. Of course, you might argue that why does one even need it today with Google being around and you can find anything on that? That's correct. You can find anything on it, but you do not know where to look for it in Google. And you might find 500 articles on something that you're looking for. Google doesn't vouch for the authenticity or the correctness of what is written there. It just shows you whatever is there on that subject. And it's for you to do that. So Map Academy has got about 22 staff right now, most of them PhDs, putting together the very first digital encyclopedia for Indian art, which would be freely accessible, not just to art students, but you want to find out about Nensuk, what you just saw, or about Kalamkari textiles, or about the Bhimbhetka caves, or just anything to do with anything related to Indian art and culture. That would be the place you go to, and not just because MAP has done it, but because we are aided by an expert advisory review committee, which is an international group of scholars who are looking at every entry that we are doing. So this is one mandate, and quite unlike a regular encyclopedia, which may be having an image and just a little bit of text, a lot of these entries are actually embedded with not just images, but even video, because that's just how we've started consuming information today. Another big part of Map Academy is the courses that we're looking at doing on Indian art. Something else to shock you, when it comes to engineering, we have 14,500 institutes and courses for engineering, but we have only 15 for the arts in a country like India. So how do we make this accessible to everyone, and to do it all online so that you don't have to physically be anywhere to access this? A lot of what we are looking at doing here is going to be free content, except if it is a monitored or a certified course, which is delivered through a university. So there would be right from introductory courses to taster courses to intermediate courses to even diploma courses on various streams of art. And this is not about teaching you how to paint, but it's more art history. And then the third part of this is the tools and resources. So if any researcher wants to find out anything about a subject, it's all listed right there as to all the credible information, articles, books, exhibitions that have been done on that subject, and how to link it to that.
Abhishek, will this be restricted to Indian art?
Yeah, we are only doing it for Indian art.
And there will be references to older canons of art history, etc., right?
Yeah, but it's only looking at the subcontinent.
Okay.
And this has got nothing to do with the map collection. This is the global collection of Indian art.
That's wonderful. I think it would be very contributory and very, very needed. There's really nothing much if you go to look for Indian art history education. Yeah, that's great. That's great to know. And Kamini, museums need to be a welcoming space rather than intimidating, and which you'll have already begun the journey, and accessible to diverse audiences, including the local communities. Now, MAP is set to create a remarkable impact on the city's cultural landscape and the local development with a fabulous location near the Government Museum and the Venkatappa Art Gallery on Kasturba Road. How do you plan on focusing on the local in terms of the language, Kannada, in terms of local culture, and also the inclusion of marginalized communities, which you've already begun with the Aravani Art Project? Could you tell us about that?
I'm very happy you asked us this question, really, because inclusion and accessibility really are very dear to MAP. I consider them the two pillars of MAP. And we've been so fortunate to get the kind of support that we have from people, from corporates, because Emphasis came on board to help us build an accessibility into the whole system. For example, we are very lucky that we have a new building. So, there are so many museums which are already stuck with this huge flight of stairs running up. It's so difficult for people with disabilities. But here the architects sat down with our consultants from DEOC, which is the Diversity and Equal Opportunity Center. And so they were able to build in various features so that MAP is a welcoming space for people with both physical and mental disability. For example, we don't just have ramps and wheelchairs and all that kind of thing. It's also about looking about the kind of surfaces that we use. For example, our lifts are matte surfaces, not shiny surfaces. The lighting that we use, what is the kind of lighting that does not disturb people with certain mental conditions? Our website is also extremely friendly to people with visual disability or hearing impaired. So we used alt text, we use the kinds of fonts and the color contrast that work for them so that they're able to see it. We use sign language in all our programming. And I'm glad you again mentioned the Aravani Art Project, because that was a mural that MAP decided to commission. There you have it. And so the Aravani Art Project is really an art collective. And so they look to provide a platform for the transgender community, the transgender artists, so that they can interact with the community. These are safe spaces for them to interact with the community. And we love the work that they've done. They've done a great number of murals and different kinds of art. And we thought their work was wonderful. And it also fulfilled the mission of MAP, of inclusion. And this is such a marginalized community. So we thought this was a great opportunity to showcase their work. So what we did, we got into discussions with them and they created this mural on the shuttering of the MAP site, the MAP building site. And it is the story, what we call the story of Bangalore. It celebrates all the communities that go to make this vibrant hub that we have here. So it shouts out to the techies, it shouts out to the Porakarmikas who did so much of work during the pandemic. You can see the iconic policeman with his Stetson. There's the people with disability there, they're young school-going children. So there's everybody has a place on this mural. And there you can see all the artists who actually created this work standing down at the bottom of that mural.
It looks like a fabulous work.
Yeah, it is.
Will it be there? Will it be there when the museum opens, where it is now, or will it be moved?
Well, we'll always look for a place. Maybe if it's not here, then we'll look for another spot in the city where it can come up and where more people can enjoy it. So there are so many options with this work. And the local community is extremely important to us because they are the ones who are going to be engaging with MAP. They will be ambassadors who take the story of MAP out. So we certainly are looking at the local language. We will be using Kannada in all our labels and texts throughout the museum. In fact, we are taking Kannada classes. All our staff are taking Kannada classes, and we just finished an online one today. So, so the local language and reaching out to the community is really important for us, because adding value to the community and linking in with the community is very important. We have 3 museums across the road from us, government museums. We want to engage with them. There are other museums in the city which are coming up, the IME, which is the Indian Music Experience. There are cultural spaces like the BIC, there's the NGMA. So along Kasturba, it would be lovely to create a museum mile, and also for us to engage with all the other institutions, because if we all come together and collaborate, then we can really transform the cultural landscape of the city. One museum cannot do it, but if we all come together, then I think we can really bring some change.
I wish there had been an interactive museum like MAP when I was growing up in Bangalore.
I hope we'll make that difference.
So Abhishek, building a museum is a financially massive undertaking, and so are the operational costs. Unlike many other private museums, your model has included the corporate sector. And this can be considered a model that will encourage others to come forward and support arts and culture, the arts and culture. But do you think your example would encourage others to open the doors to their collections? Number one. And what are your plans for sustaining revenue generation in addition to corporate funding and trustee programs?
Yeah, so you're right. The financial implication of doing a museum was much larger than we thought. In fact, when this was going to be a joint venture with the government, it was a small project of about 17, 18 crores. which the family was putting in because the land and the building was coming from the government. When we decided to do it by ourselves, and we selected this particular piece of land, which was, as Kamini said, right across the road from the other museums and bang in the center of town, the project cost went up to about 100 crores. The family put in 50, which was half. And we got the other half from patrons who came forward. And this was by invitation. So we invited them to participate in the building of the museum. And we had people like Kiran Mazumdar, Tata Trust, Wipro, Infosys, Puneet Dalmia. There's several people who came forward. They've all given us upwards of $1 million and helped make this happen. It was along the journey that we also registered a foundation in the US, because we saw that there is philanthropy for the arts in the US, and you don't have to convince people over there as to what role does the arts play in one's growing up or one's upbringing. The arts in India is just not funded. If you look at CSR, less than 1% of corporate social responsibility goes towards art, culture, and heritage. It's actually 0.8%. And this is that part of corporate India, this is that part of India which is the most well-educated, the most well-traveled, and the most exposed, and the most affluent. Now, if we care about our culture only this much to support it 0.8%, surely we can't be dependent on what the government would do. So the board in the US said that having a budget of 100 crores would only mean building the museum and acquiring the land. It would be nothing else. And unless we have an endowment, we won't be able to run it going forward. So which made the entire budget go up to about 250 crores. And the pandemic hasn't really helped us in our fundraising efforts because very little money is available. And it's also a little awkward to go to people at this time asking for it when there are other needs which are so much higher. So you're right, we had to look at what to do in terms of sustainability. And I think one thing that we are banking on a lot is our digital museum, because this would allow us to even offer digital memberships. And a digital membership to the museum costs you 2,000 rupees a year and gives you at least an event a week. Besides the exhibitions, besides the education classes, besides all the videos and all the prior content that you can access. So effectively, it comes to very, very little. It's like what you would pay to subscribe to a magazine which you get 12 issues of, or less than that. There are downloadable kits for children. There's things for the entire family. And in terms of value, it would give you at least 5 times the value of what you're paying for it. And we realize getting $1 million checks is going to be more and more difficult as time goes by. And in India, there are so many causes to support. But getting a 2,000 rupee check would be much easier, and we can get it from hundreds of thousands of people. So we hope that that would make sure that we can remain sustainable, besides also at the same time looking at building our endowment.
Thank you, Abhishek. The MAP website, by the way, I'm a member as well, is absolutely amazing and great value. I plan to access it more. Very engaging, very interactive, and there's so much to learn. And also, I think CSR is a great route, and I hope corporates will be inspired to contribute towards.
If I can just add something more here, like you saw Museums Without Borders, which Kamini spoke about. So there are corporates engaging with us through 3 different ways. One is, of course, CSR. The other is through marketing budgets, because the moment they support one of our activities, they can even support it through marketing and not through CSR, where they get their branding the way you would support a concert, the same way you can support an exhibition or a series of workshops or a series of videos or whatever. And the third is, many corporates are taking bulk memberships for their employees, because everybody's sitting at home, and it's not just because of the pandemic, but I guess even once the world does return to normal, the convenience of watching something from the comfort of your home at a time that's suitable to you would sometimes take precedence over physically making the trip and going and seeing it. So we do imagine, like we were talking about our digital opening, which had we done it physically, we would have only been able to get 150 people in there. But because we did it digitally, we had 70,000 people who enjoyed it.
Yeah, the audience must have been so much larger because it happened digitally.
Yeah.
As opposed to physically. Yeah. Also, coming to the architecture of MAP, so museum buildings are regarded as cultural landmarks and also as impressive monuments, contributing to a city's cultural overall townscape. In Delhi, the NGMA and the National Museum are cultural landmarks and historical monuments. The city cannot exist without them. MAP is set to enhance the cultural identity of Bangalore, in addition to establishing it as a site for artistic tourism. Art lovers are eagerly waiting for MAP to open its doors to the public. Abhishek, could you tell us about your architectural vision for this landmark? Accessibility is already a part of it, as Kamini mentioned. And also your brief to the architect, Soumitra Ghosh. And also, why did you decide to go with a local architect?
We had this debate as to who would be the right architect for the museum. We thought of doing an international competition, and we also spoke to some of the star architects, as they are called, the star architects. I've met with people like Frank Gehry and Jean Nouvel and people like that who've done some amazing buildings across the world and also museums and institutions. The point is, our plot is a tight city plot. We are not sitting on acres of greenery where you can build a sculpture which itself becomes a piece of art. We knew it was not going to be so much about what we were going to build, but what we were going to house within it. And the collection was well known. We knew exactly what we wanted to do with the collection. So we said, let's make a very functional building and somebody who can understand not just the local needs, but even the local rules and bylaws, which a foreign architect, every time they come here to navigate that entire landscape, that so much would get lost in translation and they would get frustrated. And I would just have the name of an architect on the building, but not their best work. So I think that was really the guiding principle between why, and also this wasn't my decision. We actually did a design committee, which has people like Rahul Mehrotra, Maruk Tarapur, and Mapu when he was there. So together we decided that this would be the right approach. And the brief given to the architect was through the design committee. And I think the advantage of doing this was we had different perspectives that the different members of the design committee brought to the table, and also different experiences that they had working with architecture, design, as well as museums. So I didn't want it to be limited by the little bit that I knew. And that's why we were very fortunate to have this committee look at why we should do what we should do. And Soumitra fell as a natural choice, because I've done work with him before. We always had a great working relationship. It was easy to, he was local, he knew the landscape of the city, he knew what my needs were or what the museum's needs were, and we could just marry it all together. But it's a very simple building. It's tight use of space. I think we have tried to use every square inch that we can. And it's not the most generous spaces that we would have liked. Unfortunately, this is all I could afford.
But like you said, what's inside is more important. And so we look forward to that. I'm sure everyone would love to see a digital walkthrough. Could you start that, Shruti?
How can anyone capture the majesty and quintessence of ever-moving time? one of the most fascinating measures of time, belong to the Puranic period. In the Puranic period, time was calculated in the following manner. Time taken to pierce a leaf, just a tuck, was Alpakala, the smallest measure of time. How many Alpakalas to a deep breath? Inhaling. And how many for an exhale? And how many for the two together?
वक्त, समय, काल. When you think of time, all kinds of thoughts start floating through your mind. But one thing is clear. As we sit here and talk about or speculate about what time is or how it enters the visual arts, we have to remember that it's a very subtle area, extremely subtle. Constantly in our text, we are being told that it is completely incomprehensible. We should, in our own tradition, we do in our own tradition, differentiate between Kal and Samay. Kal is infinite. Kal is incomprehensible. Samay is limited. This is a good Samay, this is Samay for this and so on. We understand that. But Kal has dimensions which the human mind seems to be incapable of comprehending.
जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः ध्रुवं जन्म मृतस्य च जातस्य हि ध्रुवो मृत्युः.
That was wonderful.
The auditorium space, actually.
Yeah.
It doesn't show you the architecture here, but
Yeah.
it's quite a simple but quite a striking piece of architecture. The entire facade has been covered in stainless steel
Okay.
and stainless steel panels, and they're currently being pressed and manufactured as we speak. And we've been very fortunate that Deepika and Ratan Jindal have supported us in that, and they have totally supported the entire facade of the building. So, you know, corporate help has come in various ways. It's also come in kind, like what Accenture did for us and what Deepika and Ratan are doing for us. So many people have come forward to make some part of MAP happen.
That's great.
I can see in our audience, we even have Mrs. Dalmia, who has a large part of her collection that she has gifted to MAP. I didn't see her earlier, so otherwise that would have been another name I would have given you when you said which are the significant ones that have come.
Is that Mrs. Abha Dalmia you're talking about?
That's right.
Okay. That's great. She must be having a lovely textile collection.
She does.
Yeah, great. So, Kamini, talking about the museum building and the architecture, curious to know what aspects of the museum building are you looking forward to after working in a digital space so far?
We cannot wait because there's something so powerful about the physical space. So while a digital museum, it allows us to be so flexible, and it allows us to reach huge audiences across the world, which we would never have achieved in a small, in a museum space. I mean, there's just a limit to how many people can come in, and it's the question of who's visiting the city. But here you can take the museum, its collection, its plans, its collaborations to the world at large. So really the world is your oyster. But while we see a hybrid model going forward, I think there is nothing yet that quite captures the experience of standing before a work of art and enjoying the actual textures, colors, and almost the taste of an artwork, when you stand in its presence. So we are really looking forward to engaging with people. We hope to make MAP an interactive, collaborative experience for the community, where the museum voice is not the dominant voice. We really want people to be able to interact with the collection, to add. If you look at our collection page on the website, you will always see, if you know anything more about this object, please write into us and give us your information. So we're looking at also tapping into the information that exists within the community, and to make this a very collaborative one. And most of all, we really want people to come to this space and feel a sense of ownership, that this is their museum. And I think then that would make me extremely happy, if people feel that this is their museum.
I just pulled out an image of the building, and if I could share my screen for a second and just show that, so you can see what I'm talking about. Is that visible? So that's what the building is going to look like.
So this is the entire steel cladding.
This is the entire steel cladding that you're seeing. Of course, this part is glass, which is where our staircase is, and you look at this tree there.
It looks wonderful. It looks great. Can't wait to see it in Bangalore. Abhishek, the last question for you. Where do you see MAP in the next 10 years? What are your goals and dreams for MAP?
Well, the first thing I would like to see is MAP open. And at the moment, I don't have a date. So I do hope that's the first thing that I want to see. I want it to be a part of people's everyday life. I don't want it to be a tick that, yes, I have been there and I'm done with it. I want it to be a space that draws you in again and again, and you make it a part of something that otherwise, whatever else you would do 6 times a year or 12 times a year, I want MAP to be that. I want this to be meaningful to the people, where they come here not just to learn, but to get inspired by becoming curious, by their eyes opening wide and them having fun. I want it to be a place where you discover something you didn't know, something about yourself. You partly discover yourself. I have many dreams for MAP, Mamta. I would love to see queues snaking around the block, waiting to get in, the way exactly we see in museums when we are queuing up to go to overseas. Funnily in India, we have such crowded cities, but our museums are empty. And the joke is, if you want to get away from people, you go to an Indian museum, and that's what we want to change. And I think the goal I have is not for MAP, but it's for how the arts are perceived in India. We want MAP to be that catalyst as to how we can even help the museum, the rest of the museums in the country, learn a thing or two from us, and we are ready to help them in whichever way. I mean, somebody contacted us last year and said, can you please put us in touch with a lawyer, somebody else who's looking at doing a private museum, who can help us with all these agreements and stuff for loaning works and giving stuff. And I said, but why do you want to waste 20 lakhs and 3 months of your time? They said, but how else do we get it? I said, just use our templates and change whatever you don't want. And then they turned around and said, but why would you just give it to us? I said, I've already wasted my time and my money on it. It helps nobody by you doing the same thing. It only helps the lawyers, and we already have it sorted out. So I think the whole thing is about collaboration, and how can we make, what can one museum, one little museum do to change the museum landscape? It's like, how much can one school change the education system? But if you can become a catalyst of change, then you can have a much bigger influence and impact. And that's what my goal for MAP is.
Thank you, Abhishek. So now we see why museum founders like Abhishek are one of the most important players in the art scenario. They invest resources and financial support, with incredible visions and missions to promote art and enable public access. Private museum leaders globally are shaping museums today and for the future. The public is exposed to more great art than ever. There is the idea of sharing, engagement with contemporary art at multiple levels, and dialogue between the works and the viewer. With the forced seclusion of the last 18 months, the tribulations of 2020 and 2021, they have also become occasions for collective reflection. Museums were not deemed essential institutions during the pandemic, but the relevance of art museums is undeniable as social catalysts. Museums of today are like safe havens for artistic freedom, engagement by people of all backgrounds. They contribute to transforming society. Like Kamini mentioned, that the publics are equal stakeholders in museums. And they engage audiences that have not experienced a museum before. And they disentangle, museums like this, they disentangle their art histories from Western cultural narratives. I'd like to end with a quote by the French impressionist Renoir. The only way to understand painting is to go and look at it. And if out of 1 million visitors, there is even one to whom art means something, that is enough to justify museums. Thanks so much, Abhishek, for being part of this wonderful conversation. Your contribution in the art world will leave a valuable and enduring impression amongst both the connoisseurs and the casual. And by creating a museum of the 21st century that is community focused and above all inclusive, I'm certain that you will inspire others to follow your footsteps. Thanks ever so much, Kamini, for your valuable insights into the workings of MAP and the artistic direction and leadership that you provide, which has captivated art audiences even before MAP has opened its doors to the public. And a big thanks to all the viewers for joining us. Thanks to the TAP team, Sharan, Anupa, Shruti, Ayushi, and Sudha. Any room for questions, Shruti? Or maybe we could address them later via social media, TAP social media. Shruti, is that all right?
Yes, we can, absolutely.
So thanks to everybody. Thank you for viewing. Thank you for being a part of this.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Kamini.
Bye.
I'm sure the viewers would have enjoyed this as much as we have enjoyed talking about it. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.